Hey, everybody, welcome to FL Teams, a special presentation of Behind Enemy Lines. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers host the New Orleans Saints in Week 17 in Tampa, Florida on New Year's Eve. Fireworks will be going off and cannons will likely be firing somewhat regularly, I assume. Uh, Today, well, look, I'm Jeff Macolino, but I'm the enemy in this podcast. Ken Filler is joining us. He is a new contributor here at FL Teams. He also runs the website Tampa Bay Sports Journal.com. Ken, thank you for coming on.
Jeff, thank you for the invite. It's nice to be with you and talk some NFL football here. Let's get at it.
Yeah, let's go. So the NFC South has really run through these two teams for since 2017. The Saints won 4 in a row. The Bucs are about to win their third division championship in a row. This was a division that was different champion every year for so long, and now it's pretty much just these two franchises that run it. I mean, the Panthers are a dumpster fire, and the Falcons are the Falcons. So I guess that's to be expected, right? Even though both of these teams are probably not thrilled with their team right now, they're also the teams that basically run the NFC South and have for quite a while. So the Bucs are in control of the division. I mean, let's face it, they need to beat the Panthers in the last game of the year to win the division. This game kind of sort of doesn't matter, but I'm sure the Bucs would like to put the foot on the throat and really stamp things out and not have to worry about some fluky thing happening with the Panthers. So how do you think the Bucs are coming into this game?
They're playing the best football that they've played all season. Got a 4-game winning streak. That's a season high. The offense has really come together, and the defense has been outstanding. You hear Todd Bowles talk a lot about complementary football. Offense complements the defense and vice versa. And for the last 3 weeks, they have done an outstanding job of complementary football. The offense really, really struggled through probably the mid part of the season, mid-October to late November. And there was a lot of head scratching going on. Is Todd Bowles going to make it? There were people calling for Todd Bowles' job. People wanted Baker benched. They wanted Kyle Trask in at quarterback. And Dave Canales, people were starting to question him as a first-year offensive coordinator and first-year play caller. But in the last 4 weeks, it started with the win against the Falcons on the road, 29-26. They have been a different team. And I think really with Baker being a new quarterback to the team, Canales being a new offensive coordinator, as I look back, it probably took the team and the offense that long, to really get adjusted and get a good feel for one another's tendencies, and Canales getting a good feel for what the offensive players and his skill players could really do. But the Bucs are, like I said, playing the best ball that they've played all season. They're averaging 30 points a game over the last 4 weeks. And I watched the game last week against Jacksonville, and it took me back to 2020. Now, Tom Brady's first year in Tampa, the Bucs were 7-5. They had a late bye that season. That season, it was like the end of November. I think they had their bye, and after that, they went on that 8-game winning streak and won the Super Bowl in their home stadium. And everything just clicked from that point on. And I see a lot of the same things happening with this Buccaneer team. Now, in no way am I saying that this team is going to win the Super Bowl and that they're going to go on this great playoff run. But I think the pieces are there. And right now, if you're an opponent, Dallas, Philadelphia, and you're looking at this Bucs team, you got to be thinking, I don't know if we want to play them in the first round right now in their home stadium. So I think the vibes are good, and I think the Bucs are going to be ready to go for this, quote, hat and T-shirt game on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, yeah, and from a Saints perspective, I think the complete opposite. The absolute opposite. I think the team may actively try to rebel against the coaching staff and try to lose this game. My biggest gripe with the Saints, Thursday's game against the Rams was a huge game,
Yes,
uh, and really not just for the NFC South, for the NFC, because let's face it, the Bucs and the Saints could have both been in the playoffs if the Saints had beaten the Rams in that
sure.
game.
Yeah.
There was a decent chance, and the Saints fall down big, but rally late and make it look respectable, which has kind of been their calling card all year, which to ownership says they're playing hard. We're not firing the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Allen was a great defensive coordinator for the Saints for a while. He's a terrible head coach. It was a mistake hiring him. So I'm actively, I've said this for a month now. Although now, frankly, I've kind of changed my opinion. I said a month ago, I want to win each game or lose each game in a blowout. I don't want a close game. And the Saints fell down 21-0 to the Lions in the first 7 minutes of that game. And frankly, if Derek Carr doesn't get knocked out of that game, I think the Saints come back and win it. The Saints outplayed the Lions for 53 minutes of that game, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
They have the ability to do it. And Jameis Winston came in and just really, Jameised things up. But
I'm glad he's your problem now.
Well, yeah, he is still a problem, even as the backup. Anyways, I'm just hoping the Saints, they either come out and they win the game or they get blown out by 50 points. Like, a fireable offense is what I'm looking for. And that tells you where these two teams are. One team's a hat and t-shirt game. The other team's like, oh, if we lose by 40, they might have no choice but to fire Dennis Allen, clean this staff out, and give a talented roster maybe a chance with new blood. With the coaches. So that sums it up nicely. So the matchups, the exciting thing with the Bucs and Saints recently is there are some awesome player-to-player matchups.
Absolutely.
We are robbed of most of them because Marshawn Lattimore is on injured reserve.
Right.
He usually, frankly, he bullies Mike Evans. I mean, Mike Evans' best offense has been getting Marshawn ejected with him a couple of years ago. Marshawn's out. Mike Evans, of course, is still there, so he'll probably eat. Mike Thomas and Carlton Davis both missing the game. They're a nice little rivalry too. One that doesn't get talked about as much, and I don't think these guys hate each other like the other guys really don't like each other. Is Alvin Kamara and Devin White.
Right.
Frankly, that's been one-sided, I would say, for Devin White. I mean, he really shuts down everything Kamara tries to do. But outside of those individual matchups, I guess back in the, before Wirf switched to the left side, him and Cam Jordan had a nice little matchup there too going. But Cam Jordan's got a really messed up ankle and he doesn't even rush the passer anymore. He's in on rundowns. So that another one completely neutralized by injury. So we're kind of getting our best matchups, the funnest rivalries of these two teams, kind of not there this week. But what's the biggest matchup in your eyes to watch for when the Bucs host the Saints this weekend?
Well, I had two of them, and you hit on one: the Levante David, Devin White versus Alvin Kamara. That's always seems to be one of the key matchups every time these two teams play. And the last time they played, it was a Bucs win, 26-9 in New Orleans, Week 4. Kamara had I want to say 13 catches, 33 yards, and had 11 carries for 53 yards. So anytime that you can limit his production to under 100 yards a game combined, you got a pretty good shot at winning that game. And the Bucs have been able to do that thanks to the play of primarily Devin White, the last few times those two teams have matched up. The other key, I think, is going to be the Bucs defensive backs versus the Saints wide receiver group. I mean, Chris Olave is he's kind of injured right now, not 100%, but he's still very formidable. And the new guy, Shaheed, very scary. And the Bucs are down Carlton Davis right now. He's in concussion protocol. So they're probably going to use Zion McCollum to start in Davis's spot with D. Delaney coming in at times to spell McCollum. So they're going to have to do a really good job on those wide receivers and prevent the big plays, prevent them from getting behind them where Carr can get the ball out to them and they can make those big plays. But those are the two big matchups and two key areas that I'm going to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, no, and the first matchup between these two teams, and this was when Carr shouldn't have been on the field. His shoulder was separated. He frankly shouldn't have played the first game. But the Bucs did a tremendous job shutting down what he wanted to do, which was go deep. Mm-hmm. They made him make plays underneath. You mentioned Kamara got 13 catches for 33 yards. It's impossible to do something like that. He had so many catches, so few yards. And that's credit to the linebackers of the Bucs, White and David coming up and making the tackles. But also it tells you their game plan for Carr. He's got a healthy shoulder now, so he's still going to want to be going deep. Shaheed is, those speed metrics that they do. He's the second fastest player in the NFL behind Tyreek Hill as far as miles per hour. He's a burner. He's turned into a good player for a guy who went to a Division II school and was undrafted, and this is his second year. He's someone to watch in the future, but he's still mainly a down the field, stretch the field kind of guy. If the Bucs can take that away, that's really going to make life difficult. And that goes into my matchup to watch, which is another injury. The Saints right tackle Ryan Ramczyk out. Shaq Barrett is also out. And your rookie Diaby,
Yaya Diaby
is going to be going a lot of times. I think he lines up against the right tackle, which is Landon Young, making his third or fourth career start, but third this season. He may have started the COVID game his rookie year against the Dolphins, but we don't recognize that. But he's held up okay. But that's where Derek Carr is very much, and this is not a ringing endorsement of a guy who's making over $30 million a year, but if he gets protection, he's as good as anyone. If you put a little bit of pressure on him, he folds like a lawn chair. I mean, that's so those matchups across the front line, but especially that backup right tackle starting in place of a former All-Pro, in Ryan Ramczyk.
Sure.
That's the thing that I think is the key to watch. If the Saints offensive line holds up, Derek Carr is going to put up numbers. He's going to find guys down the field, and it's probably going to be a shootout because I don't trust the Saints defense all too much right now, especially without Marshawn Lattimore and like I mentioned, Cam Jordan is hobbled to be polite. Not that he was producing that much before he got hobbled, but now he's really not producing. So that's kind of my matchup there is Diaby, Landon Young. If one of those guys dominates that matchup, and I think the odds are in favor of Diaby, that's going to tell you what happens as far as when the Saints offense and the Bucs defense is on the field. And frankly, I don't know if you feel the same way. I think that's the thing to watch in this game. I think the Bucs are going to get their yards and get their points, whether that's 24 or 34,
right?
Whatever. But they're going to move the ball down the field. We'll see how the red zone works out with both teams. The Saints defense sometimes tightens up in the red zone. But I think the question is, are the Saints going to score 6 points or are they going to score 30 points? And flip a coin. I don't know. I watch this team every week. I couldn't tell you. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of that way for the Buccaneer fans too. Yeah, we've had a string of 4 games, but there's still that question mark. You know, okay, what team is going to show up today? Are we going to get the defense that held Jacksonville to 0 points to the middle of the third quarter and build a 30-0 lead, or is it going to be the defense that lost to the Atlanta Falcons and couldn't hold a lead and couldn't make a stop in the fourth quarter with time running down when you needed to, and allowed Atlanta to get into position to kick that field goal. But yeah, we kind of feel the same way, although our confidence level is probably just a bit higher than the Saints fans right now. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You just hope that the offense that's been scoring 30 points a game comes out, plays well, and the defense that has been, giving up 15 to 20 points a game is that defense that's going to show up, get some pressure on the quarterback. The young guys are going to continue to develop, continue to grow, make big plays, and keep that Saints offense in check.
yeah. So speaking of matchups, let's move to this one. Player to watch. And I think for this, I think the fun thing would be name one player on your team. So, you name one Bucks player that you think's maybe the key to the game, and one Saints player you're most afraid of. And I'll do the same. And if it makes it easier, I'll even start. Now, I've got a bad answer to the Bucks player. It's an obvious answer, but I'm going to say it anyways because it's kind of been the thing in the New Orleans media this week. But I'll start with the Saints player to watch. And for good or for bad, it's cornerback Paulson Adebo. This guy probably was a lock for the Pro Bowl before Thursday against the Rams, where he had his worst game of the season, gave up about 90 yards in receiving. They got talented receivers. They got a talented quarterback. It was his worst game. Still, but now he's probably going to be one-on-one against Mike Evans quite a bit in this game. And now if you're a Pro Bowl player, go show it. He's been one of the league leaders in passes defense, and he missed a couple games earlier this year too. He hasn't gotten an interception, I think, since the Chicago game, which is 6 games ago. It's time for him to make some plays and show whether he is a legitimate Pro Bowl corner. And look, it's something the Saints can feel great about with Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo. If those are your 2 corners and Adebo shows that he's actually taking this step, it's only his 3rd season to be, a top 15, a top 20 NFL cornerback. Saints are in good shape in the secondary. So that's the area I think for the Saints that is going to be the player to watch, the guy who's kind of indicative of how this game's going to play out as far as the Saints defense defending Mike Evans and the Bucks passing game. On the Bucks, the player that scares me the most is Antoine Winfield. I mean, I know that's obvious. I mean, I know it's obvious, but the Saints, Dennis Allen and the Saints players have been talking about him all week, about his 5 forced fumbles and his 3 picks and his 4 fumble recoveries, his 5 sacks, 110 tackles. This guy is a beast. He's playing at an elite level, and he is playing the same. I mentioned earlier the way they played Baker Mayfield, the way they played against Derek Carr in the first matchup way back in week 4 or whatever it was. Antoine Winfield also forced that fumble on the goal line that really, in my opinion, right before halftime, that basically, I think, was the biggest play of the game by far. He is a ball hawk. He is a pest. And if the Saints don't have a great plan to attack him or avoid being attacked by him, that's one of the ways that the Saints could be scoring in single digits in this game. He is a scary player. Yeah, better than his dad was at football, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. And he's one of those guys that has been in the right place at the right time all season long. And I think from what I have heard and read, it has a lot to do with his preparation. He puts in more hours of film study than a lot of the other players do, and that shows up on game day on Sunday. He is the best safety in football, according to Pro Football Focus, with a 91.2 rating, and yet there are 10 guys in front of him for the Pro Bowl. So go figure that one out. But he is definitely a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. He's got a chance to kind of add to that legacy for this season that he's going to leave with the games against New Orleans and Carolina. So, no, you're absolutely right. Winfield Jr. has been just a godsend for that Bucs defense this year. Two players that I will keep an eye on for the Saints. I'll give you one on offense, one on defense. One is Alvin Kamara on offense. He still has the ability to have those big games. Okay, he's a veteran back, a dual purpose back, can hurt you catching as well as running the ball. And if you don't have your eyes on him and you have somebody spot him and know where he's going, and if he has the ball, you got to have somebody on him all the time or he will hurt you. So Alvin Kamara on offense is a guy that the Bucs definitely have to spot. Somebody's got to watch him all the time. On defense, it's linebacker Demario Davis. Davis is one of the, I think, the best linebackers in the league. He's got 108 tackles this season. He's got 6.5 sacks, forced fumbles. He's got 11 quarterback hits. And the offensive line is going to have to do a good job on knowing, what he's doing, what part of the field is he on, where is he going to come from, this time. Is he rushing the quarterback? And that's going to be a key, how well they can contain, I think, Demario Davis. You talked about Derek Carr not being real great under pressure. Baker is not that great either. The difference with Baker is he can make a lot of plays with his legs, and he has gotten out of so many crazy situations where any other quarterback would have been a sack, would have been, a fumble or a pick, whatever, and Baker's been able to get out of it. But yeah, Demario Davis, you got to keep your eyes on him and know where he is, at all times. And then my Buck player I think to watch is Yaya Diaby. I mean, he's making himself a great candidate for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And he's only had 6 starts, believe it or not. And he has 6.5 sacks, which is tied for rookies in the NFL this season. He leads the Bucs in sacks with 6.5. And he has 1 forced fumble. He's got 2 fumble recoveries. He's got 9 tackles for losses, 7 quarterback hits. And him, along with JTS, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and Anthony Nelson, are going to kind of rotate at that spot where Shaq usually lines up. Shaq Barrett out with the groin injury this week. So those are my three players to keep an eye on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and I'll say this for anyone who doesn't watch the Saints but looks at the stats only. Kamara not washed up at all. He still has the burst. The Saints just don't know how to use him properly. They're wasting him away. And Demario Davis is ageless. I mean, I guess Levante David's kind of getting into that territory too, where it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what my birth certificate says. I'm still playing just as well as I did 10 years ago. Yeah. I'd be remiss since we're behind enemy lines. I got to bring up one more player to watch and another player that the Saints have abused by not using him properly or enough, and that's Taysom Hill, who,
yes.
I mean, if they or anybody could figure out how to use, he's one of the greatest offensive weapons in the NFL. And we talked about what a big game the Saints had last week against the Rams. You got 2 carries for 2 yards. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It just what I mean. It's unbelievable. I'm not saying he's as talented as Christian McCaffrey, but it would be like if the 49ers went into a game and said, "We'll give him the ball if maybe a couple
Yeah.
times. I don't know. We'll see how the games go." The Saints refuse to play Taysom Hill when they are not winning, which boggles my mind.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something to watch early. The Saints have had problems falling behind, and that
Mm-hmm.
basically eliminates Taysom Hill out of the game plan. He's a player who, by the way, 1-0 as a quarterback starter against Tom Brady in his career. Not the best start he ever had, but he
Hey,
actually, in fairness to Taysom Hill, 7-2 as a starting quarterback. Not, I mean, not always the prettiest results, but he's gotten the job done. He can run, he can catch, he can pass. He plays special. He's a beast on special teams. It's really a shame. And if the Saints happen to somehow get an early lead, expect a heavy dosage of Taysom Hill, and he's been pretty effective against the Bucs.
Mm-hmm.
I would say more so than Kamara has. As far as that quarterback power that he runs, he's relatively effective because it's just a. I mean, he by the way, he actually ran a faster 40 than Alvin Kamara coming out of college. But he's just I'm going to run through you kind of player.
Yeah.
So that's someone to watch who may or may not contribute depending on the score of the game and whatever Pete Carmichael's stupid head tells him to do. So that leads into the final. We've talked about the matchups, the players, the game prediction time. I probably should have thought of a score to give you, but I'll let you go first in case you've thought of one. What's your prediction for the game on Sunday?
Well, I think this Bucs team is really focused. They want that third straight division title. This will be the fourth year that they've gone to the playoffs, and nothing better than clinching at Raymond James Stadium. I think the offense is humming on all cylinders. The defense is playing at a very, very high level. I think the Saints are going to be able to move the ball up and down the field, but I think the Bucs and their defense has been very opportunistic the last couple of weeks, and I think they'll force some turnovers. And I think when the final gun sounds, I think the Bucs win 31-17.
Oh man, I wrote down a score here. You're not going to believe this. I wrote down a score, and I crossed out the first score, and I wrote the Bucs will win this game 31. And I started writing 17. I crossed it out and wrote 20.
Okay,
I gave the Saints an extra field goal. In garbage time, to be clear. It's garbage time points for the Saints.
Yeah.
I think the Bucs come out and probably take something around a 21-3 lead in this game around halftime. And then it's just holding on against the Saints' typical surge that comes in the second half. And I don't think they'll have a problem doing it. They'll give up a garbage touchdown probably.
Yeah.
So 31-20 is, and I literally crossed out 17 and put 20. So there's my Saints fandom. We both have the Bucs covering. Last I checked, it was a 3-point spread. We're not sponsored by a betting website, so until that happens, we'll leave that out. But I think we both have similar thoughts. These teams are, I think, on paper, if you take the coaching staff out of it, similarly talented. I'd argue the Saints have a little more talent. You'd probably argue the Bucs have a little more talent. I think the Bucs coaching is here and the Saints coaching is here. And that to me, plus the motivating factors of the Saints can play their ass off and win this game, and they still need the Panthers to pull a miracle next week for it to even matter. And I don't think the Saints have a lot of faith in Carolina to pull that off. So I think you might be looking at a dead man walking going against a team who's ready to party and celebrate on New Year's Eve.
Let's do it. Pop
Well,
that champagne a little bit early.
yeah, there you go. For about 4:00, I think there'll be some popping champagne in Tampa Bay. I'll be drinking well before kickoff time at 1:00, though, if that matters. Well, Ken, this has been a blast. I definitely want to
Absolutely.
talk to you more in the future. We'll have some more stuff here on FL Teams. Make sure wherever you're watching, you hit the subscribe. Make sure you hit up Ken at Tampa Bay Sports Journal.com. And yeah, hey, here's to a good game on Sunday. I don't think either of us expect that competitive of a game, frankly, but it is what it is. Happy New Year's, everybody.
Go Bucks.